on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
You've got wonderful, positive stories that the world needs to hear, the communities need to hear. They need to be out, they need to be on social media, needs to be on TV, needs to be on YouTube, needs to be on TV stations' websites. You've got great, incredible, positive stories. Tell them.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Alexander, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Hey sorority chatters, welcome back. Today we have a returning guest with us. Michelle Rupp is a public relations expert who helps organizations tell their stories in ways that get noticed. The last time she was on Sorority Chat, we talked about media and messaging, and today we're diving into something every chapter can benefit from, which is how to get publicity for your chapter and the things that you're doing. So whether that's planning a philanthropy event, celebrating member achievements, or if you're just trying to get the word out on your campus or in your community to know the impact that your chapter is making. Michelle's going to share some practical tips to help you get your story out there. Welcome back, Michelle.
Hi, Liz. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm glad to have you on again. And it's always fun. You know, your name is the namesake of my favorite basketball arena. So it's always pleasant to have you on here and get to say that name.
That's so awesome. Yes.
I guess I'm curious why chapters should care about publicity. Let's start there.
Oh, yes. Well, in the year of our Lord 2026, it's all about publicity. It's all about branding. It's all about reputation. And sadly, it seems as though anytime we hear about fraternities or sororities, it's often not in a positive light. And you and I both know, being sorority women, that our chapters and our organizations do so much good in the community. And it's those stories that often, rarely, if ever, get told. And those are the stories that need to be told.
I agree fully with that. And I guess we shouldn't just expect that people are going to come knocking on our door asking to tell those good stories. We have to put the word out there and make it available to people so that those stories can be told.
Yep, you're exactly right. Newsrooms, of which I've been a part of several in 20 plus years in television. We're not looking for the good stories. Unfortunately, we are focusing on the negative stories. So when a good story lands in our inbox, oftentimes it will cause a pause and a second look of, well, now wait a minute, there might be something here. But even if your college campus community does not have a local news TV station, radio station in that town, you still have a campus paper, and you may have campus TV or radio where you can still get that positive information out. And as I've said countless times, there is not a red bat phone sitting in a newsroom where we would pick up the phone and get the news of the day. No, if someone from the community didn't tell us, we didn't know. So the answer is always going to be no on coverage if we don't know about it. So half the battle right there is talking with sororities and fraternities and showing them what makes a good story, how to place that story and get it in front of local media, so that then the media can make the decision, oh, you know what? Let's do this story. This actually is pretty good here.
Would you consider social media accounts for the radio stations and the newspapers and the TV stations also a place that publicity could occur?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had years, maybe decades ago, we would have, I remember specifically on our Saturday morning show, we had this thing called the community calendar. And essentially what that was were updates of what might be happening in the community that weekend. And sometimes it required an anchor to read. Sometimes it was something that they would put on the screen as they were going to commercial break. But always that information came from a press release. So people would say, well, how do you get on the community calendar? Well, you would send in a press release. And even now, fast forward, and press releases are still very viable. There is an appropriate way to write a press release. I would not leave a press release to AI. You can do it, but I will never advise that. I've had too many people in the business that say, we get AI generated press releases all the time and we delete them. We don't even look at them.
Oh, wow.
So I would never advise that, but I would advise getting that press release to media, because oftentimes they may just print part of the release on its own and post that on their social accounts, or put that on a graphic for a community calendar, or maybe they read it verbatim on the radio. So that is a number one, a way to get publicity, and it's very inexpensive to put together a press release. I mean, you can do it for the low price of free. So yeah.
And then what I'm hearing you say is, if it's written well, you're making it easy for whatever media outlet is sharing it. And that makes it more likely to get shared when you're just taking away the guesswork and the legwork, and they can just, like you said, print it or read part of it and just run with what you have supplied for them.
100%. And that is why the framework is so important, and why I would say not to leave this up to AI. Members of the news media are trained to look for specific elements of a press release. And if they are looking at that press release and they are at a quick cursory glance aren't seeing a couple of these things, they've moved on. As I said, that is something that AI is just not going to be able to tell you, in addition to exactly who you send the press release to. Oftentimes that's very key as well.
So with press releases or any kind of publicity that a chapter might try to get, who is really the target here? Or could it be a variety of people? Because what I think is some potentials would be like PNMs. Other times you're trying to reach alumni or parents or the community. So talk to us about that and who they would be targeting through this.
For sure. If you're looking at traditional media, like a broadcast, like a TV station, oftentimes that probably is going to be more of your alumni target. It's going to be your parents. Now, those parents likely could be the ones who are paying the dues for their son or daughter. So if a parent's only interaction with a fraternity or sorority is because something negative or, heaven forbid, catastrophic took place, and now the son or daughter comes in and says, I want to go through recruitment, and the parent's only frame of mind is, no, they will, something horrible might happen to you. That's not the image that we want to give. So a lot of times I might encourage organizations to be thinking about those parents, because if the parents have a negative connotation already, then we've got a little bit of work to do to kind of freshen up that image and freshen up that reputation. Now, when you are looking to put something obviously on social media, then of course that's a little more targeted to your PNMs and some alum, especially most recent alums who are missing the sorority and they're still wanting to be involved or help support in any way. So it really kind of depends on which mode of media are you looking at, and the press release by and large can be the same. We just might tweak the language a little bit so that it better fits for adults and alumni versus most recent grads and PNMs.
That makes sense. So you're tweaking that message a little bit depending on the outlet and who you're talking to. So what kinds of chapter stories actually catch a reporter's attention?
I worked with my home chapter. I'm an Alpha Sigma Alpha, and one of their philanthropies is Special Olympics, and they did a pancake breakfast at a local restaurant, and the proceeds from that pancake breakfast were going to benefit Special Olympics. And being the media person that I am, I said, oh, we're not just doing any kind of pancake breakfast or announcement that you've raised $2,000. No, we're going to get a big check. And we're going to create an event, and let's have sorority members at the house. Let's bring in somebody from the local chapter of Special Olympics. Let's present them with the big check. We can blast that all over social. We can put that out for news media to arrive. So it's little things like that where somebody might just go to the treasurer and say, yeah, hey, can you write a check for 2K? Sure, we can. Or we can create an event around it, and let's see if we can't get some positive publicity, because here we've actually got a group of women who are making this massive donation. And then you've got the person from Special Olympics that says, this actually allows us to send more athletes to Olympics, or it allows us to further the mission however we see fit. Likewise, we do something similar with Girls on the Run. That is another philanthropy for Alpha Sig, and they have a big run. The elementary girls have their big 5K in November, and so it's let's get the word out that this is happening, because you've got Alpha Sigs who are serving as running buddies with the elementary girls as they're running their 5K. You've got Alpha Sigs that are losing their minds at the finish lines when these young girls are crossing the finish lines. It's a great story. It's a great atmosphere, and oftentimes it will happen on a weekend, which sometimes is slow in the news cycle. So that also positions you to get some publicity a little easier, because there's not much happening on the weekends.
That makes sense with the news cycle. I appreciate you talking about how to take what I'm going to call an ordinary event, the pancake breakfast, and turn it into a more interesting experience by having the check presentation, involving someone from the organization. All of that starts to make it grander, which then garners more attention, just like you're saying. And it's really pretty simple steps. It's not like you're having to do a whole lot of extra work to make it that way.
No, it's really strategic thinking. And what I enjoy with organizations is, let's get your PR chair. Let's identify a couple of big things that you have coming up this fall semester or in the spring. What's one or two? Listen, we're not going to blow out every event, but is there one or two that we could look at on the calendar and go, you know what? This one here has potential. What if we framed it where it's not an ordinary, we're just going to cut a check and slip it in the mail and send it on? What if is there an event here that we could maybe create that makes it newsworthy? That's what we want. We want to make it newsworthy.
Are philanthropy events the only stories worth pitching, or are there others that they should be thinking about?
No, there are others that they can be thinking about, especially if a member receives a big award. Maybe the member, I'm thinking back, most recently, one of our Alpha Sigs was the reigning Miss Arkansas.
Oh,
so let's make a big deal about that within the confines of what the organization allows. There are different, every organization is going to be different, and every organization is going to have that moment where they've got an outstanding chapter member that has a story worth telling. Maybe it's something a little more impactful where you had a sister receive kidney, and it allows her to continue on with her college education, and she overcame something. Maybe there's some resilience, some hope that can come from a story. There are different nuggets. If you mine for them, you can find them.
That is good advice, just to sort of change your perspective and think about what might be newsworthy and mine for that information, like you're saying, and think through it a little more strategically.
And, sometimes students will say, oh, I don't have anything. We as adults will say, I don't have anything.
I was just thinking of that. I was like, I'm always guilty of that. It's like, because you live in your own life, you're like, oh, this is boring, nobody else cares. But then you're like, no, you need that outside perspective to figure out what would someone think was interesting here.
That's right. That's right. And sometimes collegiates, I mean, of course, their brains are constantly thinking from the social media aspect. They may not be thinking from the analog aspect of TV and radio and newspaper. So sometimes it does take someone a little more seasoned that can come in and say, wait a minute. There's potential here. There's a great story here. I know somebody who could turn this into a story. This might have legs. That's something that for me definitely lights me up.
So if I am a PR chair in a chapter, I have no experience. I'm curious. Where do I start? Who should I contact? Like, what should a pitch include? Like, let's just start with the basic kind of framework that someone could use to get started here.
Absolutely. Well, if you are a brand new PR chairman with little to no experience, I need you in my DMs, first of all.
Yeah, start there, right?
Okay. But let's assume we don't do that. You don't go that route. One of the first things that I would encourage a new PR chair to do is maybe get with your chapter advisor and identify that one event that is taking place that semester. Let's not bite off more than we can chew. Let's just find one. And I'm not necessarily talking about a parents' weekend or a dad's day or homecoming. Like, what are you doing outside of what everybody else is doing? Everybody else is having mom's weekend, dad's weekend, etc. So what are you doing that is unique? And again, could be philanthropy or community service related. That's really kind of what we're looking at. And then, of course, you would want to begin to pull together the elements of a press release, which are very simple. It's a high level look. It's a drone look at what you're doing. You're not telling everything. It's really, you are answering who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. If you can answer those questions in that press release, that's all you need. The press release itself only needs to be a page, maybe a page and a half. That's it. So it's a very limited amount of information. And then you want to get that out and into the appropriate hands. And that's gonna differ between who you're reaching out to. I think by and large, any type of newsroom email is good. There are some nuances. There are some specific people that can go on that email as you are emailing that press release, but newsrooms are a good place to start.
Okay, so that's helpful info. How important are photos to include with press releases, or is that a no-no?
Yeah, you certainly can include photos. One thing often that I like to do is not only send the press release ahead of time, but a lot of times I'll send like a recap, like this is what happened, and might attach some photos to that email at that point in time. Now, okay, the event's already happened. We've already had the big check reveal. That's already happened. We took some pictures. We're going to send a quick email, maybe include a quote from your chapter as well as the receiving organization, and then attach a few photos. And sometimes that will make air. That information is enough, and they will show your photographs, and that all of a sudden becomes a story.
So then in that example, is this something where you would send the press release ahead of the event, and then if you didn't get any traction, then you send the follow-up recapping as sort of like a second attempt?
That's right. Yeah, you would typically want to send a press release 2 weeks, maybe 3, but no more than 2 weeks beforehand. Now, there are some nuances having been in the media, but by and large, 2 weeks is a good frame of reference when sending something. And if you happen to look up and go, oh, shoot, this is happening on Sunday and it's a Tuesday, go ahead and send something. Maybe someone will show up. Don't just let it slide. I mean, you can certainly try, but oftentimes if you can provide information a couple weeks ahead of time, that allows the newsroom to plan and be looking ahead and thinking, oh, okay, on Sunday the 3rd, well, we might want to go look at covering this.
Are there mistakes or missteps that you see chapters make when they're trying to get publicity, things that folks should avoid?
Make sure you've spelled everything correctly.
Should be easy in this day and age with spell check, but yeah.
Make sure everything is spelled correctly. Again, this is not really the time to use AI to write this. Even if you're concerned that your writing may not be, you might have a story in your head that my writing's not good enough. I promise you, the authentic you writing that story is way better than sending something AI generated.
Yes. And then I feel like I've heard really you just need to write it at a third grade level so that everyone can understand it. Does that still hold true?
It does still hold true. Yes, it does.
So then, yeah, if you're in college, you feel like, yes, you can at least write it at that third grade level and make it very simplistic for everyone to understand.
That's right. And I would write it conversationally. I may not necessarily use some of the slang. I might not say that, this event's going to be fire. Okay, well, if it's landing in a newsroom inbox, someone may not know exactly how to translate the phrase, it's going to be fire, So I might stay away from some of that slang language, but just write conversationally, write like how you would talk if you weren't talking in slang.
That is solid advice. Yes, you don't think about it sometimes, just the things that you use in your everyday language, and then it shows up in writing when you're trying to write conversationally, and you do have to backtrack a little bit and pull that out.
Just a little bit. Yes, correct.
So most chapters right now have their own Instagrams and TikToks. Some of them have Facebook pages. And so I could see some chapters saying that's enough, right? That's how we put out information and we're happy enough with that. But why would you tell them to still pursue earned media outside of what they're putting out in just socials?
Well, first of all, you could be the only chapter that's doing this. So what is that? How does that elevate your brand? How does that make you stand out? How could that translate for the next round of PNMs that may be coming through? So that's one of the first things. This gives you a competitive edge. Also, it's showing that you're not just focused on the social aspect of your organization. I loved our mixers and our formals and had a great time, as most young women and young men do. But there are so many other components to our organizations and to being a part of our organizations. It's not always social. And sometimes it's refreshing, especially maybe from an adult's perspective. If an adult is creeping on any pages because they've heard their daughters talking about, I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that. To have a post that shows up that shows some form of engagement in the community, some form of community service, that also elevates and can send a different message other than we're just here for the parties.
Yes, all of those are very good points. And I'm glad that you're sharing that so that students can hear it and kind of understand the purpose behind it. I also think about the person who is acting as the PR chair and what great experience for your working career afterwards to be able to say, this is what you did for your chapter. And like, here are the tangible results of the media exposure that you got for them. Like that would be invaluable in and of itself too.
Without question. And in a time where students are concerned or maybe wondering, I don't have any experience. But yes, you do in the role as a PR chair. Maybe the person who is serving in that role actually has aspirations to working at an agency or doing something media wise. And for that individual, that young woman to be able to point to and say, we received earned media locally. I was responsible for creating a media event where one of our local stations or 3 out of the 4 local stations in town showed up. Boy, if I'm an employer and I see that on your resume, absolutely, I want to have a conversation with you because that shows me you're already thinking in terms of a PR professional and what you need to be doing and going after earned media and what it takes to do that. So yeah, there are highly positive implications for serving in this role if you have aspirations of doing this full time.
Yeah, what great experience and, just trial by fire, I guess. Getting it out there. Let's talk about small chapters for a second, because a lot of times they have some hurdles, right? It's a small school or a small town. And so, how would you talk to them and encourage them to compete for media attention and to get out there? Would the advice be different in any way?
I don't know that it would be.
Okay.
If you're in a small community, and maybe it's a small chapter, and maybe, or small campus even, and maybe your nearest local media is an hour away, they will travel. And the answer is always going to be no if you don't try. And now I will say, you may not get any type of response with your first press release. You may not get any type of response on your fifth press release, but eventually you will. The other interesting point is, you don't know who in that newsroom has been in a sorority or fraternity. I'm thinking particularly one station locally here where I can sit there and point to that Kappa Sig and that AO Pi and that Kappa Sig and that young lady who was in a social club because her campus didn't do fraternities or sororities, they did social clubs, and thinking, yeah, if something came across their desk, they may be more apt to say, oh, wait, let's cover this, because they themselves were in a Greek organization. So you just never know. But the encouragement remains the same. Try and try again. I will also add that TV rarely is going to ever call and say, hey, we're on our way. So one of the things you do want to include is like, and this answers the question, where is this happening? But like, don't just say it's happening at the quad. No, put the address. Like if they are coming to campus and they have no idea where the quad is, like put the address. Oftentimes they may simply show up and not give you any indication that they are coming. So you've got to act and be presentable and ready if they show up. I had a business owner tell me she sent out 3 different press releases for 3 different events in 3 different towns she was going to be in. She said on the third one, she was sending it to Atlanta television. She was 5 minutes from starting the conference, and a woman came running up to her, had lost all the color in her face, and said, 11 Action News just showed up. What do I tell them? And the event conference coordinator went, yes, show them in. I want to meet them. And her response to me was, it took 3 tries, Michelle, but it worked just like you said it would. So again, may not happen on your first try. You may have to keep going back, but it will pay off.
Yeah, that's good advice. I also appreciate that you said to include the address, because as someone who shows up on college campuses, it gets dicey. Even the streets on these campuses sometimes don't show up on maps. So anything you can do to make it easy for the outsiders to find you, it's really going to behoove you and help them find you and get to the location.
That's exactly right. And there's nothing wrong with sending something day of, just reminding them this is happening. And you know what? Include your cell phone number. Include your cell phone number as a point of contact, because maybe they are coming to campus and maybe you told them the quad was on Collins Street and Collins Street dead ends into a parking lot, because then you have to go through the parking lot in order to get to where you're going. So if they have a phone number where they could call and say, where are we? We're standing in front of a clock tower and a parking lot. Where are you? You're able to then guide them into where your event is taking place.
If people walk away only remembering one thing today, what do you hope that it is?
You've got wonderful, positive stories that the world needs to hear. The communities need to hear. They need to be out. They need to be on social media, needs to be on TV, needs to be on YouTube, needs to be on TV stations' websites. You've got great, incredible, positive stories. Tell them.
I like that. I couldn't think of a better way to end it. Michelle, if people want to connect with you, remind them how to find you.
You can find me on Instagram, Memorable Results Media. I'd love to connect there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this today. I know people are going to get a lot of good advice from you.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Here's today's House Hot Take. Recruitment isn't the only time that your house matters. Every August, chapters deep clean, fluff pillows, buy fresh flowers, and make sure everything is picture perfect for just 1 week of recruitment. But here's my question for you. Why don't members deserve the same experience the other 51 weeks of the year, or at least the weeks that they're in session with school? Your house isn't just a recruitment tool, it's your members' home. It's where friendships are built over late night snacks, where sisters study for finals, celebrate birthdays, and have conversations that they will remember for years to come. A well-maintained, welcoming house doesn't just help you recruit members, it helps you keep them engaged and connected during their college years. Instead of asking, how will this look during recruitment? Start asking, how will this make our members feel every day? And that is where the real return on investment is. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. I'm Liz Alexander, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Alexander.